A look inside and perceptiveguidance.com. And I'm coming to bring understanding the basics of astrology this week. I'm actually going to start following an outline, which I talked about a few days ago. And it will go into the history of astrology and the structure of the zodiac wheel. The activity that I want you to do this week is to label the blank zodiac wheel. In fact, I want you to start getting accustomed to just getting a piece of paper. And first of all, with your piece of paper, just making a circle. I don't know if you could just see, that's just a circle, right? That's it. Now, with that circle, I'm going to put a little circle in the middle. Do you see what I just did there? Almost like a little record or a donut. And from there, I'm going to draw the two sides of the astrology wheel. Can you see how I did that? The two sides? Because there's two sides in astrology. There's the opposing the rising. So there's the ascendant and there's the descendant. I'm also going to draw a horizontal line that goes straight across. And this is to the top and the bottom. I should have made that equal. That is not really equal. But the top and the bottom, because the top of the horoscope chart and the bottom of the horoscope chart each means something. The top, if you ever, and the goal is that you're going to start doing horoscopes eventually, right? So when you see a horoscope chart and there's a lot of emphasis above the horizon, or I wish this was more straight. I'm going to just try to make that look more straight. When you see a lot of emphasis on the side of the ascendant, this is the ascendant, okay? I'm going to put an ASC in there to stand for ascendant. And on the bottom of the chart, I'm going to make a little circle that stands for the natal. And I'm just going to put, so this is what we've got now. If you can see that chart, we got the MC at top, we got the ascendant over on the horizon, we've got the descendant, and on the bottom, we've got the natal, okay? And that's the basics. Now, if you see someone with a lot on the bottom, then you're seeing a very subjective person. That's someone who does things primarily out of the public eye. They don't like the public eye as much as someone who has it on the top of the chart. They like to do things privately. They might study a lot. They might just like being at home. They might like just being around family, but they're really not showboats, and they're really not into people who are, and they might not even really understand like people who are the outies at all. So that, just know it's different mindsets, but they're usually more unconscious or doing more subconscious things. They're very deep. They think a little bit more than the outer people are more concerned with outside concerns, where the person that has a lot of planets on the bottom of their chart, they're concerned with the inner things. Also, the person who has a lot of planets on the side of the descendant, which is this descendant indicates the marriage partner or partnerships in general. And that person, whoever that is, if they've got a lot in the seventh house in particular, you're looking at a person who's more dependent on other people. They're more other oriented. When you see a lot around the ascendant, myself, those are loners. Those are, well, they might not be loners per se, depending on what else is going on, but they are definitely independent and they're doing things alone, and they like it. They like doing it alone. They like being a entrepreneur or whatever. They don't necessarily want to be in a partnership with other people or to deal with a lot of other people. They're to themselves a little. Now, we're going to break it up even more, right? So we have now broken it up so that we have the four houses, but now we're going to do something altogether new. And I'm just going to go ahead and do this and show you what I've just done. So what I've just done is I've taken this first square over here, which is the ascendant to the, and it is the most subjective quadrant in astrology. People who have their sun in the first, second, and third house, they are thinking about things like themselves. The first house thinks about themselves all the time. The second house thinks about money and possessions all the time, or love, or sex, but usually it's possessions. And the third house person thinks about family a lot. And also like their community and their neighbors and what's going on around them. And, those are the people in everybody's business. They're always talking on the phone and, that type of thing. But they're very subjective in that they're into that. They're not so much, say, into going out and going to Washington, D.C. and rioting. Okay, that's more out there, more the top of the chart person. A doer if they've got their sun down in the third house. And that's what I mean. It's just a little bit different. I've got my sun on the ascendant. It's very rare. I have my sun in Capricorn and my ascendant in Capricorn, and my sun sits on the ascendant within 2 degrees. But my sun is technically in the 12th house, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. So the next quadrant of importance here is also on the bottom here. This is the second objective quadrant here. So we're looking at 4, 5, and 6. The fifth house is children, luck, gambling, taking chances, that type of thing. It's happy though. It's fun. It's usually things like parties and dancing and proms and stuff like that. The sixth house is health and it's work. It's the things that we do to improve our health or to improve our work or what we have to do at work or the people we work with. That too. All of that in the fourth, fifth, and sixth house. Oh, excuse me, you guys. I felt it coming and I couldn't stop it. I could not stop it. So next, let's move on to the next quadrant. And now we're moving on up now into the quadrants that really start to deal more with other people. I think the sixth house is really the beginning of other people because, or the fifth is love, right? So you're in a relationship or you're dating. Sixth house is other people you work with. The seventh house over here, this is literally your partner. This would be your marriage partner, your business partner. It could be enemies, people that don't like you, but it's anyone that you work with. It's others money per se. That's the second house. This is other people's money. Like if you're married, this would be your husband's money or your wife's money, or it could be, say, some inheritance you got or insurance money. The ninth house is really an outie house. This is the house that's really out there. This is like law and politics and government and traveling and foreign places and college and universities and churches and religions and dogma and your in-laws and all of that kind of stuff. So that's where I see all the Trumpers and the people all picketing the Trumpers, all that's up in that ninth house, all of that. So the next quadrant, also police and court cases and stuff. So like Diddy and court and the law, all of that's going on up there. So next we're going to look at the last quadrant. And this is my actual favorite quadrant. One, because I have my sun in the 12th house, but I'm also a Capricorn, which rules the 10th house. And the 10th house is the house of social status. This is where you really shine. That's the pinnacle of the chart. It's right there. So any planet you have in the 10th house is like a beacon in your horoscope. When I look at a horoscope chart, I go right to the 10th house and see what's going on in your career. What's happening there? Because if that 10th house is messed up, I know something else is messed up because that's what you radiate to the world is your 10th house. To give you an example how strong the 10th house is, I'm doing right now a training on astrology, right? That's very, very woo-woo. Well, I've got Neptune on the 10th house, on the midheaven. What's that? Very woo-woo. I mean, spiritual, out there, otherworldly. And that is exactly the kind of work that I do because that's my 10th house. So when I look at someone's 10th house, it lets me know if someone is a spiritual person or a woo-woo person. I think for me, though, having Neptune on the midheaven and the sun in the 12th house, which is the natural, it's like what they call it, interception. The sun is in Capricorn. So Capricorn's in the 12th house, and Neptune, the ruler of the 12th house, is in the 10th house. I hope you get that. Anyway, it makes me very okay. And so that's the 10th house. It's what people think of when they think of you. It's what they see when they see you. And I'm sure most people, when they think of me, they go, that girl is so confused. She's so woo woo. She's so out there. She's on a whole different planet. Like, yeah, she's in another dimension. And sometimes I am. The 11th house is friends, and it's also like groups, clubs, associations, organizations you belong to. It's others, but it's in a group setting. I always say the internet is the 11th house. It is. Especially if you're in a place like, say, TikTok or Facebook, because it's all about groupings and maybe even being in a group or interacting with other people in a certain way. But the 11th house is also known for hopes, dreams, and wishes. So if you've got a hope, dream, or wish, if there's a lot of stuff going on in the 11th house, that's probably the best time to get it. And finally, we've got the 12th house. There's 12 houses in the zodiac. So if ever you're asked how many houses are there, well, there's 12 houses. Okay, remember that. And 12 signs. So the 12th house is the heavy house of astrology. It is the house, and I told you my sun is there, even though it's on the ascendant. So I act more like someone who has it in the first house. But the truth is, I have it in the 12th house, and it's a very sad house. Okay, I can't lie. It does help you to go into your own little world, and a lot of 12 housers do things alone. They are in their own little world. They, end quote, space out. Some do drugs or drink, or they, go into fantasy. A lot are creative. 12th housers, a lot of creative activity in the 12th house. So you might see a lot of that. But yeah, the 12th house is sometimes connected to things like prison and hospitals and mental institutions and just almost like a prison. But sometimes it's a self-imposed prison. It's things that we could probably avoid if we weren't shooting our own selves in the foot. And all the 12th house is also known as the basement or the dungeon in astrology. It is not the best house, but a lot of times it is a power behind a throne. And with my son there, that's what they always say, that it's the power behind the throne. And I do feel like that might be true. I've always done better when I'm promoting other people in that way. So this is what your lesson is. I can't believe we've already gone through 20 minutes. So what your lesson is this week. There's a handout. I'm going to make a PDF and make sure you have that. I want you to get accustomed to the houses 1 through 12. If you've got to go back and listen to what I said about the 12 houses, that's fine, so that you get to know and understand the meaning of each house. It's almost impossible for you to be a decent astrologer without first understanding the core meanings of each of the 12 houses. Okay, so make sure you do that lesson, that you master the art of building your circle. I like having people build their circles by hand. I know that you can just go and get them on the internet, but I'm a by hand astrologer. I still do it because I still like the feel of it and the thought processes behind it. And I want you to get accustomed to that. It's different when you just go and look at astro.com and see what they have versus when you're just trying to pinpoint essences and directions and where the emphasis is. And you can do that quickly by just drawing up your own chart. So any person, place, or thing can be viewed in astrology via astrology wheel. Everything has a date of conception, and that's what we're looking at. Like, what day was it created? What day did it become real? And that day is the day that we use to calculate things. So, one of the things you can do for training is to try to do your own will, and then don't cheat though. And then if you know where your planets are. If you don't, then that's fine. Because I wanted to find out if you can figure it out on your own and put your planets in the right houses. Okay, you might not be ready for that, but anyone who can do it, let me know. Okay, So this is what we're doing. And basically, let me just say this, just in case I don't say it in the insert that I'm going to train you with, because there is going to be some more information here. But what is astrology? Astrology is the study of the stars. We look at the stars and the planets, the constellations, basically, the luminaries, the sun and the moon, to dictate or to tell us what's going on in our world here on Earth. You see, astrologers believe that the planets are affecting us physically, emotionally, and spiritually here on Earth because we're spiritual beings, we're energy. We're all vibrating to energy. And I believe the planets are emitting energy and we are vibrating to that energy. It's part of, I guess, us being created in the way we've been created. And so those who really believe in astrology, like myself, we believe that these planets actually do have an effect on our actual physical lives here on earth in our physical bodies because we're spiritual beings and we're still going to be affected by spiritual things. So that's what astrology is, in my opinion. It's a science. Some people go, it's not, but there's a lot of math behind it. So I do believe it's a science. It's the study of the stars. But there's a history of astrology that goes back to way before Christ, back into the Babylonian days and things of that nature. This is not a new thing. A lot of people think, oh, it came out in the 1970s or in the 1900s or the 21st century. No, this goes back millennia. This is back before Christ. It's one of the belief systems in humanity. And so this is why I believe, regardless of what you think about other things, that learning at least the basics of astrology, why people like me use it, how we're able to accurately predict things, I think understanding that is vital. It'll all make sense when we're finished at the end. Okay. And also, another question you might have is why 12 signs? Well, I will say this 12 is a very spiritual number, isn't it? Because Jesus chose 12. But one of the things I also found was weird was that the 12 houses and the 12 signs adds up to 144. And there's always this talk that at the end there will be 144,000 that ascend to heaven or, to this higher plane. And I always wonder, are these the archetypes of each of the astrological archetypes? Because it would be 12 houses, 12 signs, right? Times 12 would be 144. And so that is just my mindset. But, I don't know. I just know that in the Bible, it's supposed to be 144,000. And my thought was, wow, how strange that one of each would equal, each of the 12 houses, it would be 100 and, 144. And so if you 1,000 of each, right? 144,000. So anyway, it's just the way my mind thinks. It's something for you to maybe look up and think about that. I just thought I don't hear a lot of people talk about the 144,000 or the chosen ones in that way. And I just always thought that was interesting. Anyway, we will come back and talk more about astrology next time. I've got another training to do in about 10 minutes. And next time, we're going to be talking about the elements and the modalities because there are some interesting things going on in astrology when it comes to elements and modalities. So this has been Adrian, also known as Capricorn Tigress, of Astrology A Look Inside and PerceptiveGuidance.com. It's been my pleasure to be here with you. I look forward to talking to you again next week. Blessings, everyone. Blessings.